Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the professor, and this is the moment of truth.
Here, I spend lots of time trying to connect the dots and explain to people public policy, how these things work, and why these things matter. And you got some people out here, you got some black folks out here who say, well, I don't see what the big deal is. It was performative with Biden appointing a black woman to the Supreme Court. Ketanji Brown Jackson is no big deal. I'm trying to explain to people how one federal judge could make a ruling that literally goes out across the entire country. And so just take 60 seconds and explain to the simple Simons out there who don't quite understand the impact of when it comes to who's the president, who controls the Senate, and how who they pick to be federal judges for life can have a direct impact on the life of black folks.
If there's anything you care about in terms of the black agenda, whether or not that be voting rights, whether or not that be climate equality and justice and fairness, whether or not that be gun reform, gun safety, police brutality, police reform, all of it ends up in front of the Supreme Court. All of it.
For once I'm surprised that roly-poly managed to attack the black grassroots without becoming profane. But then again, this was a very short clip. Chances are he got vulgar afterwards or before. But in either case, what he lacked in profanity, he more than made up for in condescension. Saying he has to connect the dots, as if he's talking to idiots. These are the people who he allegedly is trying to persuade, as if he thinks that we're stupid. And then he says for Eli Mistal to explain to the simple Simons who don't understand the impact of how Congress appoints judges. Well, if that doesn't make you want to vote for the Democrats, nothing will. Talking down to people sure does make converts, doesn't it? I didn't think so either. You see, the black grassroots understands full well how federal courts work. What Rowley doesn't understand is that we're not fooled by the rhetoric. We hear it every 2 years. We already gave the Democrats control of both houses of Congress 3 years ago. They had the House and the Senate when Biden took office because we gave it to them. And what did the Democrats do with it? They pushed for goodies for the feminists, immigrants, LGBT community, etc. Fine. And that's who they need to look to get control of Congress back. They made it a point to produce for everyone except for black people, so now they need to go ask for the votes of everyone except us. That's how that works. And also, notice how Eli rants his gibberish about police reform? Well, when the Supreme Court was ruling on whether police are obligated to issue the Miranda warning to people who they arrest, it was Biden's own Inspector General who he sent to the Supreme Court to argue that the police shouldn't be obligated to read someone their Miranda rights. Biden did that. The Supreme Court was deciding a case about the police, and the Biden White House sent a representative to tell the courts to take the side of the cops and to basically strike down the Miranda warning, which they did. Biden was personally responsible for that. So that's how much good voting Democrat did us on the Supreme Court. Whenever anything goes to the courts, Biden sides with the bad guys. But they don't say anything about that, do they? Roly-poly and Eli Mistal, they just lift that part out, because this isn't about the courts. It's about two Democratic shills trying to con black people into supporting the agenda of their would-be white paymasters. Notice how these bootlicks always get indignant about black people not obeying. They really get angry about that. They insult us, they talk down to us, and then they wonder why we won't listen to them. If these two had any brains, they'd be giving their little lecture to Biden and the Democrats. That is, if they don't start advocating a timetable for our reparations, then they'll be the ones who don't get anything. If Democrats do not put a date certain on the table to produce our tangibles, then they won't be getting anything from us. That is the only conversation that's relevant here. We are the only constituency who people come up to, and they don't talk about what it is that they're going to do for us. Instead, it's lectures and condescension and insults about what we need to be doing for them. And when we ask what's in it for us, well, the other guys will be worse. Vote for us or the other guys are going to be worse. They don't promise us anything. They just say the other guys will be worse. Well, based on what I've seen, there's no difference for us. We ask both parties what they're going to do for us if we vote for them, and one of them says nothing, and the other one says absolutely nothing. That's a distinction without a difference. That's not a choice. If these bootlicking Negroes like Roly-Poly and Eli Mistal want to be mad about the balance of the Supreme Court, if their white liberal pals are getting on their butts about it, they can blame Ruth Bader Ginsburg for this situation. She was the one who handed the conservatives a supermajority on the Supreme Court. All she had to do was resign during the Obama years, but as far as she was concerned, she didn't want to be totally and completely irrelevant. She was a somebody as long as she was on the Supreme Court. As far as she was concerned, she wasn't leaving for any reason, and of course the woman already knew that she had cancer, but her ego and her pride is what handed the Republicans control of the Supreme Court. That's who they should blame. If these bootlicks want to lay blame, they need to start there, but they won't, because the white Democratic leadership that Roly-Poly and Eli Mistal are so desperate to stay in the good graces of, those white liberals won't tolerate these bootlicking Negroes criticizing their beloved St. Ginsburg. And both of those bootlicks know it. So this is how they reach out to the black community. They send two bootlicks with no credibility and no clout, and they insult us and act like we're too stupid to know that we already gave Democrats control of Congress 3 years ago, and that the Democrats did nothing for us in regards to the judiciary. They ignored us. So they're not fooling anyone by saying you better vote Democrat or those Republicans will use the courts to attack you. They're already doing it now, and the Democrats are helping them to do it. You know, you never see the white right attacking their base. Be it Fox News, or Newsmax, or OAN, when it comes to voting, the white right media blames the Republicans for not turning out the vote. They don't blame their voters. They blame the candidates and they blame the party, which is where the blame belongs. And the only disagreement is about who is the most extreme in pushing the interests of their base. They'll insult the candidates or the Republican leadership, but they never insult the base. Oh, and one more thing. I consider it particularly galling that this Eli Mistal in particular is the one calling himself talking to the black community about anything. Because you'll recall, this is the same guy who, after Bill Cosby was released from prison following his illegal and unconstitutional conviction, Eli Mistal was on MSNBC pretending to be angrier than the white feminist about it.
Yeah, first of all, I think we have to stop saying the phrase, no one is above the law, because that's clearly not true. It's clear that some people are above the law. If they are men, if they are rich and they're powerful and their victims are women, then guess what? You're above the law. And you're going to continue to be above the law until we change the laws and change who is enforcing and interpreting the laws. That's the whole ballgame. So when I look at that New Yorker cover and I look at Andrea Constand and I think about how she's the one victim, she's the one victim who was allowed to bring her claim because for reasons passing understanding, we still have not changed the statute of limitations on rape allegations to unlimited, right? We do it for murder, so I don't want to hear, oh, memories fade. We do it for murder. If you kill somebody, you can't get off because you killed somebody a long time ago. Why don't we do the same thing for rape? Because this country hates women. That's really the only conclusion that you kind of end up at.
You hear what he says? Men with money are above the law, as if color doesn't trump money. So apparently he doesn't know that Bill Cosby is a black man. Or apparently he seems to think that black men have some sort of privilege. And then you heard him say that the states need to change the laws so that the statute of limitations for rape are going to be permanent.
We do it for murder, so I don't want to hear, oh, memories fade. We do it for murder.
You have God knows how many black men in prison right now who white women accused of rape, and those black men didn't do it. So don't tell me accusers don't have bad memories. Alice Sebold accused an innocent black man of rape all the way back in the 1980s. She then admitted that she couldn't pick him out of a lineup, and that when prosecutors said don't worry about that, they would handle it, she went right along with it and lied an innocent man into prison. Then she wrote a book telling the world he was a rapist. She became a best-selling author based on a lie about rape that put a black man in prison that took decades of his life away from him. And when it was predictably found out that the black man was innocent all along, Sebold had the nerve to say that everybody needs to remember that she's the victim here. This was what Eli Mistal was saying on MSNBC, and I guess he figures somebody forgot about it, but the black media never forgets.
But the remedy in this case is not to throw out the conviction and have him never tried again. That is crazy and extreme. The remedy here is to say, like, okay, the statements that Cosby allegedly relied on this deal before he made, those statements are inadmissible. And now we try him again. And we try him again and again and again until we get it.
I am very, very hopeful that one of those prosecutors will be, let's just say, as angry as we all are and concerned enough to do something, because a lot of those prosecutors said, if Pennsylvania is going to take the lead and he's going to get a lot of time behind bars, we don't have to do anything. But I think they're going to have to take another look now, open their folders up and say, we now have to do justice again for all of those victims, because this is such an outrageous injustice.
Now, why is it that these states changed their laws? California, New Jersey, New York, Nevada. It was because you had an organized effort by the white media to relentlessly demand that they do. Not to go after rapists, but to go after black men in general and Bill Cosby in specific. Because whenever we talk about the extensions of these statutes of limitations, Bill Cosby's name always comes up. Like that white woman said at the end of that clip, well, hopefully some prosecutors will be as angry about this as we are. Yeah, that's them not even being vague about it. They're not even being coy. You need to change the laws and go after that nigger. That's what they're saying. Now, you can name plenty of rapists, I mean real ones like Roman Polanski, who are on the loose and have been for decades, but the only person who all these lawsuits are ever filed against is Bill Cosby. So this isn't about rape, it's about race. But there's also something else. Eli Mistal is so enraged that an innocent black man is free, and he thinks that black men have privilege and apparently white women don't. And apparently he's just so enraged at the idea that rape has a statute of limitations because murder doesn't have one. Well, Emmett Till was heinously murdered. He was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered. And Carolyn Bryant was allowed to be free until the day she died. Where was MSNBC and Eli Mistal to rant and rave on TV and demand that the states change their laws about that? Where are those white feminists at to say we need to talk about white female privilege? Where were they to demand that prosecutors arrest Carolyn Bryant on that outstanding warrant for kidnapping that was finally located by the supporters of Emmett Till? Eli Mistal was only going overboard with the anger and acting like he's so indignant because he wanted to impress the white liberal crowd, because that's who he answers to at whatever white media rag he whores himself to. Like roly-poly, Mistal gets profane and vulgar, but only when he's talking to or about black people. He sees his white liberal paymasters unhappy because a black man escaped their clutches, and he's going to be out there doing the most to show that he's angrier than they are about it. Reminds you of Kamau Bell, doesn't it? Yeah, you have to be a special kind of stupid to be a bootlick. I mean, this bloated buffoon was cursing online and acting like he's lost his mind, which wouldn't have taken long. This is who roly-poly puts on camera with him to talk about the importance of Democrats controlling Congress so they can control who gets on the federal bench. Eli Mistal, who said that Bill Cosby needs to be prosecuted again and again until they finally get him. Now that's a blatant violation of double jeopardy that he's advocating for, but it is music to the ears of the white media types that he wants to impress and hopefully get some money from. At no point does anything in the specific interests of black people ever come into the discussion. Eli Mistal names the same old hodgepodge of white liberal pet projects, but nothing for black people. So these bootlicks get trotted out to see if maybe this time they can sweet talk a few of us into volunteering to be part of an abusive relationship. Because that's what the Democratic Party's been treating us like. This is an abusive relationship. When it comes to the Democrats, all they believe in is abusing black people, if not neglecting us outright. Talking to us like we're stupid, demanding that we do things that will only benefit them, and then they have the nerve to tell us lies, saying that we're above the law, black people are above the law, black men are above the law, and that we need to demand policies to target and punish black people. And they do this right to our faces openly. They don't ever do that with any other group. They don't sit there and tell illegal aliens, now we need to have some laws so we can go after you guys. They don't do that. You have a shameless bootlick like Roly-Poly who has complete contempt for the black community and would sell his soul for a butter biscuit. And then you have Eli Mistal who hates black men so much he endorses policies meant to target us because he's trying to show his would-be white paymasters that he wants to do the most to push policies injurious to us. Anything for a dime. This is who the white media sends to yell at us. Well, we need to go ahead and send a message back to them, but we don't need to yell it. Our action, or rather our refusal to act, on voting day that is, would speak far louder than our words. There's no need for us to tell them what it is that they should do for us. They already know. At this point, it's time to impose consequences for what they haven't done. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Emmanuel Williams, Imani Metendaji, D.I., Eric Bailey, and Naji95. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.